Keeping up with our motto, let learning be a joy and teaching a pleasure. Here we are with a remote teaching and learning process to bridge the gap. Happy learning, students.
A very warm welcome to the students of Thakur Vidya Mandir High School and Junior College. Standard 4th, subject English text, topic lesson number 13, Sultan Ghiyasuddin in the Qazi's court. Sultan Ghiyasuddin in the Qazi's court. This lesson describes how people, irrespective of their position in society, need to obey the law. Now let's read the first para. Hundreds of years ago, in the eastern province of Bengal, Sultan Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah ruled the land. His capital was Sonargaon. Sultan Ghiyasuddin was a good ruler. He ruled wisely and well. He respected men of learning. He had a deep regard for law. In this para, we come to know that hundreds of years ago, the eastern province means territory of Bengal, whose capital was Sonargaon, was ruled by a sultan named Sultan Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah. He was an excellent ruler. He ruled wisely and well. He respected men of learning. Men of learning means well educated and knowledgeable men. He had a deep regard for law. Regard for law means care or consideration for law. Let's read the second paragraph. One day, while the Sultan was practicing with his bow and arrows, he accidentally wounded the only son of a poor widow. The wounded boy did not survive. Weeping and wailing, the poor widow went to the Qazi and told what had happened. In this paragraph, we come to know the mistake committed by the Sultan. Once, while the Sultan was practicing with his bow and arrows, the arrow by mistake hit a boy. The wounded boy did not survive. Survive means he did not live. He died. The moment his mother, who was a widow, got the news of the accident, she was in grief, as he was her only son. Weeping and wailing means crying and sobbing loudly. She went to the Qazi. Qazi means an Islamic judge, and told him what had happened. Now let's read the next paragraph. The Qazi was an honest and upright man. He sent an officer to summon the Sultan to his court. When the officer reached the palace, the guards stopped him and inquired about his business. When they learnt that he had come to serve a summons on the Sultan, they were shocked. They refused to let him go inside the palace. The Qazi was an honest and upright man. Upright means honest and just. After hearing the whole story of the widow, the Qazi sent an officer to summon. Summon means a written notice ordering someone to appear in the court. The summon was sent by the Qazi for the Sultan to appear in the court. When the officer reached the palace, the guards stopped him and inquired. Inquired means asked question to gain information about his business. About his business means as to why and for what reason he had come to meet the Sultan. When they learnt means when they came to know that he had come to serve a summons on the Sultan, they were shocked. They refused to let him go inside the palace. Now let's read the next paragraph. The officer was now in a fix. The guards did not allow him to enter the palace, but he knew that he could not return without serving the summons. The Qazi would not take him back. He had to find a way of reaching the Sultan somehow. What could he do? He thought and thought. Now, as the guards were not allowing the officer to enter the palace, he was in a fix. In a fix means in an awkward situation. He knew that if he returns without serving the summons, the Qazi would not take him back to the court. Somehow he had to reach the Sultan. So he thought and thought. Let's read the next paragraph. At last he began to sound the azan, the call for the prayer, loudly, just outside the palace. It was not yet time for the prayer. When the Sultan heard the loud, untimely call, he was greatly surprised. He ordered that the man giving the call should be brought before him immediately. After thinking for a long time, he thought of an idea. He began to sound the azan. Azan means call for the prayer, loudly outside the palace. Hearing the untimely call surprised the Sultan, and he was very angry. He ordered his soldiers to bring the officer in the palace immediately. Let's read the next paragraph. His soldiers rushed out of the palace gates, caught the officer, and took him to the Sultan within moments. The Sultan's soldiers rushed out of the palace and caught the officer and took him to the Sultan within moments. Within moments means very quickly. Let's read the next paragraph. When the officer knelt before the Sultan, he was trembling with fear, but he mustered all his courage and explained why he had given the call for azan. Then, with shaking hands, he gave the summons to the Sultan. Sultan Ghiyasuddin took it without making any comment. He read the summons and told the officer to go back to the Qazi. He announced that he would appear in the Qazi's court the next day. The officer knelt before the Sultan. Knelt means bowed down. He was shaking with fear, but somehow he mustered courage. Mustered means he gathered courage and explained as to why he had to give the untimely call for the prayer. Then he gave the summons to the Sultan. Sultan Ghiyasuddin read the summons and told the officer that he would come to the Qazi's court the next day, and he told the officer to leave. Let's read the next paragraph. The next morning, the Sultan got ready to appear before the Qazi. He hid a sharp sword in his robe and set out. The next morning, the Sultan got ready to appear before the Qazi. Before leaving, he hid a sharp sword in his robe, and then he went to the Qazi's court. Let's read the next paragraph. The courtroom was packed with people. Everyone was eager to see what would happen. The Qazi entered and took his place on the high seat of honor. In a little while, Sultan Ghiyasuddin entered the courtroom. Everyone stood up to show respect to the Sultan, but the Qazi did not get up. The Sultan stood in the docks and the trial began. In this paragraph, there were many people in the courtroom. All of them were eagerly waiting to see what would happen. The Qazi took his seat, and in a little while, Sultan too entered the courtroom. Everyone stood up to show respect to the Sultan, but the Qazi did not get up. The Sultan stood in the docks. Docks means an enclosed space in the court of law for the accused person, and the trial began. Trial means the process. Let's read the next paragraph. The widow presented her complaint. The Qazi took note of all the evidence and in a grave voice addressed the Sultan. Evidence means the information given in the court to prove something, and grave means serious. Next paragraph. You are guilty of causing the death of the only son of this poor widow. According to the law, you must pay a fine for this offense. I order you to do that without delay. In this paragraph, the Qazi orders the Sultan to pay a fine for his offense. Offense means crime or wrong deed, and to do it without delay. Let's read the next paragraph. The Sultan accepted the judgment and apologized to the widow. He arranged to pay the fine immediately. The widow felt satisfied that the offense was brought home to the offender. Here, the Sultan accepted his mistake and also said sorry to the widow. He also arranged to pay the fine immediately. The widow felt satisfied as the person who had done the mistake was proved guilty and was punished. Next paragraph. When the case was over, the Qazi got up from his high seat of honor. Respectfully, he bowed to the Sultan and requested him to take his seat. When the case was over, the Qazi got up from his seat and respectfully bowed before the Sultan and requested him to take his seat. Let's read the next paragraph. The Sultan then drew the hidden sword from his robes and told the Qazi, I am happy that you did not waver in your duty. You did not hesitate to punish me. Otherwise, I would have beheaded you with this sword. The Sultan then removed the hidden sword from his robes and told the Qazi that he was happy that he did not waver. Waver means hesitate or be unsure in his duty. He was very fair in his judgment. If he wouldn't have given a proper judgment, he would have beheaded him with his sword. Let's read the next paragraph. The Qazi then put his hand under the cushion where the Sultan was seated and brought out a whip. He said, Your Majesty, I am happy because you obeyed the law. Otherwise, I would have whipped you in this court. In this paragraph, we come to know that the Qazi too hid a whip under the cushion where the Sultan was seated, and he said he was happy that he obeyed the law. If he wouldn't have accepted his mistake, he would have whipped him in the court. Next paragraph. The Sultan then got up and embraced the Qazi. Thank God, we both did our duty, he said. The Sultan got up and hugged the Qazi and said, Thank God, we both did our duty. Next, everyone present in the courtroom praised the two great men. Everyone present in the court praised the Qazi and the Sultan for the great work that they had done. We will be meeting soon in the next video, so keep learning something new every day. Thank you.